Hey guys, welcome back to RHR Jen. I'm so glad you're here. Honk honk, everyone. Guys, we have such a good show today. I'm so excited to bring you this one. I'm sitting down with friend of the channel, John Witherspoon, who's going to talk to us about some really interesting topics, especially in regard to Meghan. We're hearing rumblings of a possible class action suit, what that would mean if that's the case, and a lot of you guys had asked that he discuss NDA, so we're going to get into that as well and what that might mean for Harry and Meghan. We're also going to go into just some of the shenanigans they've been up to lately and talk about our thoughts about all that and so much more. So again, thank you, John Witherspoon, for your time and your answers. Thank you guys for being here. Make sure you subscribe, hit the thumbs up, and leave me comments, as all of those things helps YouTube to recommend my video, and I sincerely appreciate it. Now let's get into this episode. Here we go. Guys, I am so excited to have John Witherspoon with me. Hi, John. How are you doing today?
I am good. How are you, Jen?
I'm good. Thanks so much for asking. Tell me, have you been swilling, slinging, sipping on the rosé?
I have not. Sorry to disappoint, but not a big wine person. Not a big
Not a
wine
wine
person.
person.
Yeah,
If we added dried flowers to that, would that help you in any way?
that would not. That would not. Because the idea, it's bad enough, when you get like a hair in your mouth, I would think that would be
I
constant.
wouldn't know anything about, I don't know. Just kidding.
Yeah, but I would think that would be just like, ooh, what was that? Ooh, what was that? Ooh, what,
Yeah,
something's in my mouth. What?
exactly. That's what I was saying. Can you imagine going to a party, having this cocktail that somebody's giving you, and you're sipping, you're trying to meet people, and all it is you're just worried about what's in my teeth when I'm talking to strangers.
Right,
Right.
right. And the whole business of putting it on coffee, where somebody put up a picture or forwarded a picture of it
Oh,
on top of a cup of coffee. I mean,
yeah. It's
bad
just,
news. I don't know what to
yeah.
say. I just don't understand it.
I don't either. Goodness gracious. But before we get into this, tell us how we can help you out. Now, you don't have a YouTube channel, but you do have an Instagram. Would you like it if people went and followed you on Instagram?
That would actually be great. It's
Okay.
Witherspoon DC on Instagram, and I don't have a channel yet, but I do have a good amount of content. So when I launch that YouTube carnival of fun, I'll announce it on Instagram.
When I think of you, John, I think carnival of fun, right?
That's right. That's right. I do have some cool stuff. I was in the British Embassy a couple of weeks ago, and that's going to be really fun, I think, for people to look at. So, yeah, it will be fun.
Good, good. Let us know when it's up. And I believe that the flock had named it Jaunts with John. Have you given any more thoughts as to the name?
No, I haven't really thought about that too much. That'll probably be something that comes to me as I'm sitting at a traffic signal or, in a moment of insomnia in the middle of the night, I'll come up with something clever. But
We look forward to it. Definitely let us know and we'll give you the follow. But in the meantime, we will check out your Instagram. Thank you so much. But thanks for being here. I guess just diving right in. The first thing is we got a lot of questions for you. People really wanted to know, if you wouldn't mind, could you explain how NDAs work and the enforceable contract aspect of it?
yeah, well, it's interesting that you use the word contract because that's what an NDA is. It
Mhm.
is a contract between typically an employer and an employee. And as with all contracts, you need to have two parties because you need an offer from one party and you need the other party to accept. And then there needs to be something that they called consideration, which is just a fancy word, which means that something of value is going to transfer ownership, or there's going to be something given one way or another in exchange for the contract terms to make the contract terms be fulfilled. So basically what an NDA is a form of a contract between, as I said, between an employee and an employer, and you agree to certain terms in exchange for the consideration, which is the opportunity to be employed. So one thing to know about contracts, and this has come up in the context of the situation where Meghan and Harry's employees are concerned is that it is against, for reasons of public policy, it is considered inappropriate to have a contract for some sort of illegal activity.
Okay.
And the question that comes up in the context of Meghan and Harry and Archewell and so forth is, well, what if there's an NDA and there's bullying? Well, then that gets into the realm of what type of bullying is acceptable or not acceptable in the eyes of the law. And that's really a conversation for a different occasion. But the interesting thing about NDAs is that in most cases, an NDA would be something that would be part of an employment agreement where there is some, let's say, intellectual property or some sort of a trade secret. And I'm talking about things like the formula for Coca-Cola or the design and the specifications of, say, the next iPhone if you're working at Apple, and you have access to that information. And the employer wants your help as an employee, but they don't want you taking the information that you've seen or things that you've heard and running off and giving it to a competitor or selling it to somebody. That's really what an NDA is designed to protect against. So the NDA in the context of a situation like with Harry and Meghan is just that they don't want you talking, apparently, and I have not seen any of these NDAs, so I'm just speculating here, but what they apparently are trying to do is to keep people from talking about things that they have seen or heard or witnessed in the course of their employment. And I'm always reminded in a situation like that of some, it was not reduced to writing, as lawyers like to say, but it was a comment that a boss, a guy that I work for at one point, used to say, and he said it fairly frequently. And it was what his comment was: what you see here, what you hear here, let it stay here when you leave here.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and that's basically what you're talking about. It's like, listen, if you see stuff, if you hear stuff, don't go off running your mouth about all of these things.
Mhm.
Here's the problem. Let's go back to the example of an iPhone that
Okay.
is the information about the next version of the iPhone
Mhm.
that has a substantial dollar value associated with it.
Mhm.
And it's also probably not going to be too difficult to figure out if some information about the next iPhone gets loose somehow and some competitor gets it. It's going to be not easy, but it is going to be possible probably to trace back exactly where that information got leaked from, and especially if law enforcement gets involved, as they sometimes do in situations like this. And you hear these stories about espionage from foreign actors who infiltrate companies in the United States. You hear about it in the context of China a lot of the time. They planted some people at Apple or Boeing or wherever it is, and they manage to get information and they ship it back, okay? And they always manage to find the people responsible. So when you're talking about just sort of general information about what is the vibe in Harry and Meghan's home or at Archewell or someplace else, that becomes a horse of a different color to a certain extent, because you're not talking about something tangible. You're talking about conversations that were overheard, or somebody lost their temper and yelled at a lot of people, and they made life difficult, and it was not a place that was pleasant to work.
Right.
That becomes a lot more difficult. And the other thing is that you see signs that people are starting to talk.
Mhm.
it's kind of like, all right, there's a breach in the dam, and some people have been talking to Radar online, and some other people have been talking to Kinsey Schofield, and some other people have been talking to whoever else. And then the next thing you know, people start to feel emboldened.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very difficult at that point to sort of stop the leaking, because people start to see, oh, I know so-and-so probably said that, but you don't really have any kind of substantial lead.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody gets upset and they start screaming and hollering, and there are 10 people in the room, and the story of that episode gets leaked somehow, well, you don't know which of those 10 people are responsible for that.
Right.
So the point I'm trying to make is that it is a lot more nebulous
Mm-hmm.
in a situation like at Archewell or in Meghan and Harry's home. And we've started to see that fairly regularly now with people, as I said, leaking to Radar or to Kinsey or to whoever it is.
Yeah.
The other thing is, when you're in a position where you are bound by, or theoretically, I should say, bound by an NDA, you have to think about, okay, well, what are the consequences if I have to go out and if I'm accused, and let's say I'm legitimately accused of breaching an NDA somehow, what are the repercussions? What's going to happen to me? Is the FBI going to come knock on my door like they would if I had given away some secret from Boeing or Apple or something?
Mm-hmm.
Not likely.
Right.
Not likely. There are a lot of occasions when people are asked to sign what look like very restrictive and onerous and scary documents,
Mm-hmm.
like NDAs, and in some cases they're not worth the paper that they're written on.
Oh,
It can be very deceiving, and until somebody actually tests the strength of the NDA, you really have this document that looks very, hairy and scary and everything, but at the same time, if push really came to shove, it would not be something that was, as I said, worth the paper that it was written on.
I
The
got
other thing is, and I think this is really important, there are all these stories that have come out about people that have worked for Harry and Meghan, and they've had to go into therapy, allegedly, and do all these other types of things to, extract themselves from the circumstances that they feel like Harry and Meghan have put them in. And they've gone into therapy, and they have PTSD, and they have, and you hear this over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody really gets angry and they feel like they have been done wrong
Mm-hmm.
by people, Harry and Meghan and Archewell and everything else, in a lot of cases, people stop caring about the NDA. They just say, screw it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what I signed, and I don't care what the potential repercussions are.
Right.
I've just had it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like what happened to me or what I feel like happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just going to, I don't care. I'm going to call Page Six, or I'm going to call Radar online, and
Right.
I'm going to spill my guts.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care if I get caught. And I think that that's the type of scenario that really is dangerous as far as Harry and Meghan are concerned. If these types of people are out there where they have just said, I don't care,
Sure.
I've had it, I'm fed up, those are the people that really pose a danger to Harry and Meghan. I
Mm-hmm.
suspect that those are some of the people that are leaking, as I said, to Kinsey or to Radar or Page Six or whoever else is writing all these articles. That's really what the problem is as far as Harry and Meghan are concerned. And that's what they probably think, as a lot of people do,
Mm-hmm.
oh, well, we've got these ironclad NDAs and everybody talks about them. Well, as I said, they may not be as ironclad as Harry and Meghan would like to think. And even if they are, if you get somebody that's, feels like they've been backed into a corner and they've been done dirty, and, they feel like they have nothing to lose,
Mhm.
Those are the people that are really going to be problematic for Harry and Meghan, I think, if in fact all of these allegations are true.
Sure. This is a good time to say these are all just our opinions. You're not giving legal advice. We're just having a conversation about what we think and what we've heard. I agree. Two
Yes.
thoughts come into my mind though with this. And one is I would think unless it's specifically in writing or just where 30 people have heard it, it's hard to prove bullying. I would think that would be a hard thing. Do you see, like, to let you out of an NDA, if that makes sense? If I'm saying that correctly.
Well, what you're talking about again is that an NDA is a contract, and as a matter of public policy, you cannot contract for something illegal.
Of course, that's
Bullying
where I'm
is
going. Yeah.
not illegal just broadly. We've all worked in environments where we have a boss that has a temper, or a boss that is a slave driver, taskmaster, whatever it is. We've all been there. There's no obligation to like your boss
Right.
in a work environment, or to like the person who sits next to you, or
Right.
whatever it is. The problem is when you get to a situation where, and again, I've never heard an allegation that this is the case
Sure.
with Harry or Meghan or at Montecito or Archwell or anywhere else. When you get into a scenario where, let's say, there is sexual harassment,
Right.
that takes the form of some sort of bullying, or
Right.
uh,
Like a
discriminating
discrimination.
against,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes, making a hostile work environment
Right.
based on some protected characteristics, such as race or gender or skin color or disability or whatever it is. That's when you start to get into the illegality, at which point the NDA totally collapses. But
Sure.
just being in an environment where your boss has a temper, or rants and raves a lot, or asks you to do too much stuff,
Right. It's not.
that is not illegal under most circumstances. And again, I've never heard anybody say that, well, Harry's making sexual comments, or Meghan
Sure.
is making
Yeah.
none of that has ever been
Mhm.
part of the accusations that I've ever read.
No, me neither. But the other thought I had, I just thought that was so good. Repeat that quote again that you learned, because I think it's so interesting. And when you repeat it, think about it in terms of what Harry and Meghan have done. I think it's ironic that they're having people sign NDAs when those two can't shut up about the royal family. But can you say that quote again? Because I think it's so powerful.
Sure.
Uh,
The quote is, "What you see here,
uh-huh.
what you hear here, let it stay here when you leave here."
There you go. So think about that in terms of Harry and Meghan. That's what they're asking of their people, but they do not follow that. They should have taken they should have taken that suggestion advice when they left the royal family, right?
Well, I think that that's what everybody has intuitively in the back of their
Mhm.
mind when you think about what Harry has written in his book, and
Mhm.
when Harry talks about, I don't know how much longer my father has to live, and all these
Right.
kinds of things that are inside baseball, not only inside the royal family, but inside and inside the palace, but
Uh-huh.
in his flesh and blood, his
Right.
father and
Uh-huh.
his brother and his sister-in-law. I mean, these
Right.
are ostensibly and conceivably the most important people to you in the entire world. These are the people that are going to bail you out when you get in a jam, as we've talked
Mhm.
about on a number of occasions. And yet, he, for
He's all
whatever
yeah.
reason, doesn't register with him that you're asking for all this confidentiality and all this privacy, and yet on the other hand, this is the way you treat your own flesh and blood. And South Park really hit a
Yes,
home run with that. So,
that's right.
but
Here's what
it's worth repeating,
yeah,
because
I
it
think so.
seems to keep happening.
Mhm. What else do they have, right? Yeah.
Well, isn't that the $1 million question?
Mhm.
Harry has nothing to offer,
Yeah,
as
I think
far as most people's opinion, in terms of, deep thought or education, or I mean, if he would write a book about uh, you know pick your subject. He's got so many pet projects, the dangers of the internet. If he would ever put together he could write an op-ed in the newspaper of all things, and he could quote some statistics. I don't think anybody would be inclined to publish it.
No, I wouldn't think so.
So he has very little to offer most thoughtful people, I think. And that's part of what his big dilemma is right now, is that he probably has convinced himself that, a bunch of people paid me whatever to get on a plane and fly to China and give a speech or come to New York and set up some, a memory garden or whatever it was that they put together of the kids who had allegedly suffered some harm because of online activity.
Right.
And that's all well and good, but why is Harry and why is Meghan in a unique position to lecture the rest of the world on any of these subjects? There's no good answer to that, I think, as far as most people are concerned.
Agree completely. It also brings up, so we're hearing rumblings, and we got to say allegedly, and it's rumors right now, but I'm hearing rumblings, and I believe you said you are too, about potential class action suits. Can you explain that for us, in terms of what you're hearing and how that would work?
Yeah, well, the allegations are that, and I think, quite honestly, I think it's more loose talk about loose spread more than anything else. But there's some chatter online about this allegation that Meghan sold some products to people that they paid for, and then they tacked on shipping. And when the products were not available, again, this is alleged,
Sure,
there was a refund for the product, but not for the shipping.
okay.
And so now people are saying, well, there should be a class action lawsuit for these people who basically, again, allegedly, are out whatever they would have paid for the shipping. A couple of things come to mind. First of all, what is a class action lawsuit? A class action lawsuit is, by and large, the same thing as any other lawsuit. It's just that for the convenience of the potential plaintiffs and for the convenience of the courts, instead of having 100 people or 1,000 people or however many line up and all go through the process individually, the court will say, look, we can delete a lot of birds with one stone here by grouping these people into a class. And a couple of things that the court has to look at before they do what's called certifying the class. They have to look at, are all of these people similarly situated in terms of whatever it is that they've been complaining about?
Right.
Are they all interested in being members of the class? I think anybody who's in the United States has probably received a postcard or a letter at some point that says, by the way, there's a class action against whatever, because people who bought a certain brand of tire and then the tire wore out prematurely and there's going to be a class action lawsuit. But, the sky's the limit on these types of things. So they have to be similarly situated. They have to be interested in being part of the class. And then the judge has to agree that the attorneys who are going to represent this class are capable of adequately representing everybody who's in the class. And at that point, and with a couple of other little small steps, at that point, the judge can say, yes, I will certify that this is a legitimate class, and now we can go forward with a class action litigation.
Okay.
So the practical problem of this is that you're talking about, how much was the shipping? I think it was less than 10.
Oh, I was thinking it was
well,
like
that was for the
$19.
wine, I think. The wine was
Okay.
$20. I think for some of these other things, like the honey or whatever product that she
Right.
said
Probably
she
less
ran
than
out
10,
of.
I would think. Yeah.
Yeah, less than $10 or something like that. Okay.
Right. So I just went through
how painful?
Equifax. I
Yeah,
got the Equifax class action thing. It took years, and I just got $7.
right, right. Yeah,
So they'll get
it
pennies.
becomes it becomes very, very. I don't know. I get those things in the mail,
Mhm.
and it's like, why do I even care?
Right.
Again, there was a data breach
Uh-huh.
from wherever. There's a proposed settlement of whatever, $10 million. There are
Mhm.
10 million potential claimants, and then you've got to subtract out the lawyer's fees. I mean, do
Mhm.
you really want
Right.
I mean, I've gotten checks for class action settlements that are literally 65 cents or something like that. And you just think, oh,
You're rich. Yeah.
yeah, it would cost me 65 cents of my time and effort to, do a deposit on my phone, much less actually drive down to the bank and say, hi, I've got this check here. So the point being, from a practical perspective,
Mhm.
it's kind of unlikely
Yeah.
that I think there's going to be any kind of class action litigation. And even if somebody really got serious about that, for all of her faults,
Mhm.
alleged faults,
Mhm.
I think Meghan would be exceedingly foolish to allow something like that to go forward, because the PR would be absolutely disastrous for her.
Agree.
And somebody in her orbit would say, we got to head this off. You better refund. Again, if they haven't already issued the refunds, you don't want this problem. You don't want this
Mhm.
appearing on Radar Online or in Newsweek, or the Megxit YouTubers talking about all this, because it's just not something that she's going to want to put up with. So I don't think, the bottom line is, I don't think there's going to be a class action as far as alleged problems of shipping and so forth.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you for explaining that. So you and I, we often talk offline just about the ridiculousness that those two are up to, and I keep a list of talking points. So I've kind of organized them a little better this time. So if you don't mind, I'd like to jump into specifically on this. I have a couple talking points in terms of Meghan in general, as ever, and her business dealings. So, my first, this isn't even a question. This is just a fun game, and I encourage you guys to play in the comments. One of you brilliant flockers came up with this, which was, can you imagine if Meghan was on Shark Tank? My point before was she, in my opinion, just doesn't seem concerns with things like your profits and your losses and how things actually work at a business level. It's more about packaging and the way things look versus the 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 product and the inventory. And she gets more excited about selling out than having pre-orders or the proper amount of inventory. So I kind of get stuck on that. And somebody said, imagine if she was on Shark Tank. So John, imagine if she's on Shark Tank. Even if you've never seen an episode, the idea is about pitching your business, selling it hard. You'd have to discuss specifics about why your product is special, what you've done to be successful, what your numbers are like, that sort of thing. How do you think that would go for Meghan?
Well, here's the thing. When I think of shows like Shark Tank, I'm always reminded of American Idol,
Okay.
or any one of those, and there are several iterations of
Yes.
American Idol type shows. And as we all know, part of the fun of watching a show like Shark Tank or American Idol is, number one, seeing the people who come in who are really totally on top of their game. Say, if they're a singer on American Idol or whatever it is, they come in and they just kill it.
Yeah.
And it's like, not even any question. You're going to the next round. You've got a lot of talent, blah, 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 on and on. And then the other fun thing about it is watching the people that come on, and you can tell where I'm going with this, who are convinced that they are the greatest thing ever.
Yes.
And the judges just, I mean, can you imagine, let's say, I'm mixing and matching here, but
That's
if
okay.
Simon Cowell was on Shark Tank, can you imagine what Simon would say to Meghan? Can you imagine?
Get
Where are
out.
your financials? Where are your numbers? What are your 5-year goals? What are your 10-year goals? What are your 12-month goals? How did you do last quarter? All
That's
of this
right.
stuff.
Mhm.
What's your P&L look like?
That's right.
What's your staff turnover? Who's your marketing manager?
What's your
Who's running?
overhead? Absolutely, yeah.
Yes. Why have you sold out 3 times? That doesn't make any sense. What are you trying to accomplish here? Are you trying to be able to claim that you sold out, or are you trying to become a billionaire, as you
Right.
purportedly are trying to become?
Mhm.
All of these types of questions. So yes, I think it's an excellent thought exercise.
Mhm.
What would happen if Meghan went on Shark Tank? I think she would be absolutely obliterated.
Yes.
And the only reason they would even let her on in the first place was because they would be the producers of the show would see it coming a mile away, and they
Mhm.
would let her go on, and she would absolutely be crushed
Yes. I think so.
in the worst way possible. And
Mhm.
I mean, this is there are a lot of Megxit YouTubers. I mean, Brittany, Real News Brittany, constantly talks about, like, this business model is not even a model.
No.
It's like pudding or something,
Uh-huh.
vanilla pudding. It's just this blob of apparently random thoughts, and it's Tuesday, so I think I'll launch a different spread. And
Exactly.
I mean, it's hard. This is one thing I've said to people. People who know I collab with you and some other people on YouTube and so forth, and people ask me, they say, I do not understand what goes through Meghan's head. And I say, I think that's a very excellent point to make. And it is entirely appropriate to raise these questions. The reason is that Meghan and Harry, I mean, you talk about a perfect storm of the two of them coming together, but
Right.
both of them are wired up so differently than the collective rest of us. And
Mhm.
they both, especially in the case of Harry, he has such an incredibly different life experience than the rest of us have had. And when you see a video where I was watching, I don't know who it was the other day, somebody was doing a video where they talked about, they just chronicled, and they couldn't even do it in one sitting. They had to split it up into 3 parts. They just chronicled, well, first she did this, and then she did this, and then she did this, and then she did this. And it's like every single one of these episodes is absolutely mind-boggling. And
Yeah.
they go on and on and on and on. And the thing everybody's, I think, waiting for is for all of this stuff to come to a head, either in the form of some sort of household strife.
Mhm.
There are all these reports out right now that allegedly Meghan's mom has thrown in the towel and has decamped from Montecito to go somewhere else.
Mhm.
Again, allegedly. And there are all these rumors that have been flying about, oh, well, Harry and Meghan, there's no way that they can stay together. And there are other people who actually make some good arguments about why they might stay together.
Mhm.
But, or they'll run out of money or whatever. So the thing that, again, is so mind-boggling is that they are both wired up so differently than the average person who
Yeah.
has worked hard and has a functional, for the most part, extended family and so forth. And people are just desperate to see what's the last chapter of this book going to be.
That's
That's why I
true.
think people are finding them so compelling
I
on an
think
ongoing basis.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think so, and I think there's a sense of wanting some sort of justice, if you will, for those of us who are big fans of Her Majesty the late Queen, among others, Princess Catherine, things like that. I think it's a lot of us are waiting for I think we're witnessing right now the downfall and the comeuppance, if you will. But I think a lot of people are sticking around for that for sure. Now, what's interesting is at the time we were recording this on Thursday, it was announced on Wednesday. You and I have not talked about this. I don't know if you're even aware of this. On Wednesday, it was announced, you know who is now on Shark Tank? Jamie Kern Lima. Baby voiced
As
herself
a judge or as a
as a judge. I believe so, yeah. So if Meghan's going to get on Shark Tank, it may be through that. Right? She has to talk like this, like, oh, that's a good idea.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, boy, that's
Yeah.
odd on so many levels.
Yes.
In a way, it's almost, I would not think that would benefit Meghan, because I think a lot of people would look at her and say, "Who is this woman? She does not. It's no fault of her own. We can't.
Right.
None of us are responsible for our voice. We
Sure.
can, as Scott Rouse would say, and I love Scott Rouse, by the way. He has
Yes.
gotten more and more involved in. He has a fascinating background, by the way. If you've never, Scott Rouse is a guy who does YouTube collabs with a number of creators, and he also I haven't seen one recently, but he has done a panel of 4 so-called body language experts, and I realize a lot of people don't put any, don't consider body language to be a serious art. It's definitely I think a pseudoscience. It's fair to say. But he has a fascinating background in the music production business. He's a really, really compelling and smart and interesting guy. So anyway, I digress with that. But I think
everybody go honk at Scott Rouse, leave honk and tell him to come collab with me then.
Yes, absolutely. He'd be a fascinating person for you to talk to, Jen. He really would.
Hi, Scott.
Yeah.
Come talk to me. Yeah.
Scott Rouse, I really find, and it's like so many other people. I've talked about Royal Grift a number of times.
Yes.
I don't believe everything that Royal Grift has to say, and that's fine though. But she makes me think, and that's the same thing with Scott Rouse, and with you, Jen, and all these other creators that we've talked about. I really enjoy the thought provocation process of listening to people like Scott. And anyway, that's neither here nor there. So. But one of the things that Scott calls out about Jamie Kern Lima is that when she finishes almost every sentence, she says, "And so then you went to the beach, and you walked. You got your toes in the sand, and you fell asleep, and that becomes very tedious to listen to,
Grating, I think so,
and grating in a lot of ways. And again, we can all work on certain parts of our speech and our presentation. I get it, but at the same time, I think if she went on Shark Tank, people would say, number one, who is this woman? What are her credentials? Yeah, apparently she's a billionaire, or she sold her cosmetic line to L'Oreal, I think it was, and she made a whole bunch of money. But where did this all come from?
Yeah.
Where not only is she hard to listen to, but where does seed money come from? I think she's the person who married into some wealth, and then she was able to leverage that. And I don't begrudge that, but that's a different story than somebody who starts, like Marriott hotels.
Right.
Literally started with a root beer stand in downtown Washington. It was a lunch counter kind of arrangement. And that was, generations ago. And now you've got the Marriott Corporation, which is a worldwide behemoth. But at the same time, that is a true pull yourself up from 50 cents in your pocket, or the story that we talked about of Fred Smith and FedEx.
Yes.
I've only got $5,000 and we need 25. I'm going to go to Las Vegas and gamble this. And if he hadn't won that 25 grand at the blackjack table, we wouldn't have Federal Express today.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, you get the point. I just don't think Jamie Kern Lima strikes most people as a true entrepreneur in the way that some other people, like Fred Smith and J. Willard Marriott, have been true entrepreneurs. And there are all kinds of stories about those people.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. Let's see. Meghan can't condemn her squad. You brought up such a good point about this. Talk to me about her squad and why she wouldn't be able to condemn them. Because that's constantly my frustration is she talks about this online harassment and stuff, and I'm like, her squad are some of the worst I've ever encountered or ever seen. We hear terrible stories about them constantly. It's not even a secret. So tell me I thought you had a really good thought on this. Why can't she condemn her squad?
Well, I think there's a fairly straightforward answer for that, and that is that she's going to rely on some of those people
Mhm.
to be her customers when she sells things.
That's right.
And I don't think the problem that I have with it is that I think there's potentially a middle ground that she could strike. She could at least give lip service to the notion that some of these behaviors are not really in the best interest of society and the best interest of the internet. And when they all, people kind of get unhappy and nasty in some cases, as some people do, and they take it a little bit too far. I don't think there's anything wrong with calling out some of those people and saying, you know what, that probably
Yeah.
isn't the best way to behave. She
Right.
could easily do that without alienating her customer base. But I
Absolutely.
think in her mind, she probably is of the opinion that if, I go out and I say anything to tell people to take it down a notch or tone it down, whatever,
Mhm.
I think she's probably very worried that that would eat into her customer base.
Yeah,
And
I think you're
I
right.
I I I don't I don't subscribe to that theory
Mhm.
personally, as I said, but I think at the same time she probably is of the opinion that that would do her some harm if she called some people out.
I feel like you're probably right, spot on with that. The only thing is maybe we're being too generous to Megan. Maybe she doesn't think they're doing anything wrong. It's one of those things where I don't know. I just think I'll say it nicely. She doesn't always have the best attitude, neither do her followers. And I think they're directly taking cues from her, in my opinion. It just seems so. Why would she put a stop to it? Like she wouldn't, you're right, she wouldn't want to damage her sales potentially, but I think more than that, she sees herself as a victim. They cry victim and all the ist words, so she has no incentive to put a stop to it, I think.
I think you're probably right. And here's the other thing too. If she is in fact, and it's an if, but if she is in fact uh, a narcissist or a malignant narcissist, if she is prone to narcissistic tendencies, I think she would probably not even consider the fact that other people are misbehaving in a way that causes another group of people some sort of discomfort.
Mhm.
And I think, again, if in fact she is very, very self centered or exclusively self centered,
Mhm.
then I don't think she's going to be the type of person that would actually even think, you know what, you guys
Right,
are kind of not doing me any favors by some of
right.
your behavior. And especially, she would probably not be inclined to say, I kind of feel bad for the people that are out there. And I get it. There are all kinds of arguments that can be made in terms of, oh, well, people are picking on her, Meghan and Harry. And so therefore, some of those people deserves to get some of it back. That's all well and good. And I understand that logic. But I think somebody like Meghan, who purports to be above the fray, and
Mhm.
I'm not interested in all of this pettiness and foolishness. Well, if she would make, or Harry would make, some sort of affirmative action. Harry's always talking about, I would like there to be real reconciliation. Okay, well, here's a good way to start reconciliation.
Mhm.
So, and I don't know about the extent to which, Meghan's supporters are out raising hell for other people. I mean, I hear stories once in a while. I don't know. If it's true, I think it's unfortunate and it could be easily avoidable. And again, to go back to my earlier point, the 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 negative blowback
Mhm.
is on Meghan. I think
Right.
that's what is, again, to talk about the sort of business aspect of it. I learned very early on when I was involved in business activities, people will buy stuff and people will do business with people that they like. I think that is a universal truism. And so if you've got people out in the world, as is allegedly the case with some of Meghan's supporters, she would do herself a great favor to say to these people, listen, I know where you're coming from. I know what your attitude is. But at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, you're not doing me any favors.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I don't think she ever will, but I agree with you.
Yeah, and again, it's all back to that whole business of people want to do business or people will do business with people that they like or that at a minimum that they consider tolerable. And when you are, I think it's ranker.com. I haven't been over there recently, but the last couple times I checked, she is the most disliked high profile person on the planet. That's a remarkable achievement. Remarkable, especially when you consider some of the other, the Diddy's and the Amber Heards and the you name it of the world. She is very, very high up on that list, and Harry's not far behind.
Right. She was first and he was third last time I looked. I haven't looked lately, I believe. So, John, you and I had kind of come to a similar opinion about Meghan is hardwired to manipulate others. And then we talked about how we don't believe she listened to anyone. And you had an interesting theory as to why that would be. Can you talk to me about her potential manipulative mindset?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all wired to manipulate other people, but it's in the context of a give and take.
Okay.
I think that's kind of the difference. My observation is that that's kind of the difference for Meghan, is that she, I think, from some of what I've observed, I think she's more inclined to take and take and take, and that's part of the reason why she seems to make a habit of dismissing people out of her life, like her dad and so forth. She just, when the utility is gone, or when the apparent utility is gone, then all of a sudden that person is kicked to the curb, so to speak.
True.
So I think that's just the way that she's wired up, and it's different than the rest of us.
It is different than the rest of us, but I think if she would, again, it's easier to say it if you're not that person, but if she would listen, it would save her so many missteps, but she never will. Is that a control freak thing? I would assume. I'm just guessing, something like that. But.
Well, I think about my own personal development and the development of people that I've been around, my friends, people that I went through college with, and my adult friends and so forth. I think at some point you start to learn that, as we've said in previous occasions, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And that when a friend or a trusted advisor or a person in your employ who you've presumably brought on board to give you good advice, when that person tries to talk to you and they give you some ideas, I think it's very important to say, well, even if I want to dismiss that idea completely on its face, let me just assume that 50% of what that person has said to me is true or is worth thinking about.
Right.
What can I just kind of roll around in the back of my head and say, I don't like that, I don't agree with it, but somebody who presumably has my best interest in mind has said that to me, and I'm just going to file that away and continue to marinate on it and keep an eye out for things that may support what that person has said to me or may refute things that that person has said to me. I'm not sure Meghan does that.
I think it ties into our conversations before about blind spots. And I think most mature adults realize that, I mean, I've said it to you before. I feel like I have a blind spot on this. Can you help me look at this? And you do, and you'll usually see something I just cannot see, as is the case with most people when you're too close to something. But that takes a certain amount of awareness that you have these blind spots that, again, most of us are aware that we have blind spots. I don't know that Meghan has that ability, because that would admit in her mind a weakness, whereas the rest of us say, no, it's just a human thing. You're not going to see everything. So
that's absolutely true. And I don't care how brilliant a doctor or a lawyer or whatever else you are, or a physicist or a mathematician or whatever it is,
or a
those
YouTuber,
people,
whatever.
sure, even as brilliant as you are, Jen.
Thank you for that laugh. Yes, please.
Yeah, I mean, we've all seen you can see it on procedurals of hospitals, and these whatever it is, a doctor will walk down the hall into another doctor's office and throw an X-ray up on the wall and said, "What do you think of this?" I get phone calls fairly regularly. I make outbound phone calls regularly to other attorneys. And I said, let me spell something out for you. What do you think about this?
Yeah.
And I never tell them what I think first, because I want to hear their unadulterated opinion of it. And then I say, okay, that's really interesting, because either you completely agree with me or you completely disagree with me. And I'm grateful regardless of how it turns out. And I have had situations like that. In fact, one fairly recently where somebody said to me, I think you're completely off base on this. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to go kick the hive a little. I'm going to go tap into the hive a little bit more and make another phone call and another phone call. What do you think of this? What do you think of this? And there have been times when I have really saved myself a lot of hassle and trouble because I have solicited other people's opinions. And I would hope that other people would say, assume that works in both directions, because my phone continues to ring. What do you think about this? I got a weird situation here. And it's not always, something specifically legal. It can be a question of, do you think this is a fight worth having, or should I just concede this and think about something else?
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of instances like that. And girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, child, parent, whatever it is. And you can save yourself a lot of heartache and hassle by doing that kind of thing. But again, back to Meghan, we hear, and Harry, and we hear repeatedly that they just don't do that in the way that most other people do. And if in fact there are big issues with their turnover, as apparently there are on their staff, I think it's probably because people just feel like, oh, well, I did what I could for you, and then you didn't take my advice. You didn't take any of my advice, conceivably. And then you basically stepped in a big pile of horse manure or dog poop, whatever it is, and now you're upset about it. Well, at a certain point, you just say, I don't care how much you're paying me.
That's right.
Life's too short. I feel too frustrated. I can't sleep at night, and I feel like I'm wasting my time and I'm not appreciated. So I'm going to go someplace else.
Absolutely.
That may well be a factor in the allegedly very high turnover that they have in their professional staff.
I think you're right. I think so too. I think it's interesting that they always brag, we got the best from Google or whatever the company, or Hulu, or the top of whoever to help us. And then 3 months later, they're gone. And it's like, oh, no, they were just temporary. No, they weren't.
Yeah. Well, this Josh. Josh, I can't remember his last name.
I can't either. Yeah.
Left after 90 days. Oh, that was just a trial. Try before you buy type scenario. Okay.
But when they announced him, he's part of the team and all this.
Oh yeah. Right. Harry's chief of staff is going to straighten out Harry.
Because, yeah, you want a temporary chief of staff. No, you want somebody trusted that's going to stay on. And yeah, no, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, yeah. And then again, I really commend these people who are out chronicling all of the events in the Megxit saga. Just recently, there have been these reports that came out about Harry allegedly insulting the Queen for 10 minutes or doing something,
yeah.
having a blowout with the Queen. It's like,
It was 10 minutes and it was around the wedding, allegedly, right? So
correct, correct.
I talked
And
about this, yeah.
yeah, and again, this is alleged, but
Mhm.
first of all, she's the Queen. Second, and I don't know what the correct order to put these in.
Mhm.
She's the Queen,
Right.
and she's also your grandmother.
Your grandmother, exactly.
Why is this complicated? How in the world? There's
Oh,
an old lady. She's an old
exactly.
lady.
I don't care if my grandmother said, "You need to wear a pillowcase on your head." I'm not arguing with her. I will figure it out on my own, but I will just say, "Okay, grandma, I'll think about that." Taking that under advisement.
Yes,
Like, whatever.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that just, again, it's alleged.
Yeah.
None of us were there. We
Sure.
don't know for sure.
I
But
just when there's smoke, there's fire. I'm pointing to books you
yes,
can't see. All the books I have read that said similar stories of Harry being exactly that rhymes with prick to his grandmother. Um,
yeah,
and so I hate that, and I think the exact same thing. And yes, logic would say put the queen first, but no, she's your grandmother. She is your grandmother. You don't talk to
right,
your grandmother like that.
right. It just,
Goodness.
it's really remarkable if in
Mhm.
fact if in fact it's
If it's
true.
the case, yeah. I just think where there's smoke, there's fire, and there seems to be a lot of smoke around that. So,
Yes, there is.
yeah. I cannot with the two of them. Meghan can play the long game with tenacity, but going back to the business conversation we've had, she's terrible at a short game in business. That's an interesting point that you made. Any other thoughts on that, or is that just what it is? I mean, yeah.
Well, it kind of is what it is.
Mhm,
I can't take full credit for that observation, but I certainly think that it has some merit potentially.
mhm.
Especially, I think since you and I discussed that, Jen, there have been these articles that have come out alleging that Meghan had no interest in staying in the UK to begin with, and that all of this, oh, I tried so hard, and it's like, no, again, these allegations that
Yeah,
she had this long-term plan. I mean, what else is a vision board for if not to generate a long-term plan of some sort and remind you of what your goals are, your life
right.
goals.
Uh-huh.
By the time I'm 40, I'm going to be this, and by the time I'm 50, I'm going to be this, and so forth. And
Mhm,
I do believe she's a long-term thinker,
mhm.
and it's such an interesting contrast with what we see in terms of her attempts to be a businesswoman.
Right.
Very interesting. Very
Emphasis
interesting.
on attempt, underline exclamation point by attempts at being, yes.
Yes, and she may well succeed. She
Mhm.
may well succeed. I mean, I'll be the first to admit that. And it's been reported recently that the people in the royal family really hope that she succeeds as
Mhm.
well, because uh, if things completely go south in terms of her marriage and her family and her business and enterprises and so forth,
Mhm.
she could well just go completely scorched earth. She's got
Mhm.
nothing to lose if
Right.
she runs out of money. And again, the stories are running wild about that over the last 48 hours.
Yeah.
And if her relationship to Harry goes south and so forth, then again, she's got nothing to lose, and she'll just be a perpetual pain in the neck to the royal family and conceivably to the rest of the world, for the people that actually care what she does and says and thinks and so forth. But
True.
uh, I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't know. It's a very interesting juxtaposition, as I said, between what seems to be her ability to think very long term, well into the future, multi-year plan,
Mhm.
and yet
Launches a
the
business on a whim.
well, yeah, and
Forgets to
it's
sign the paperwork, though. Yeah, go ahead.
well, yeah, and if in fact that's what actually
Right.
transpired, but yeah, it goes back to a conversation that we had once before about the difference between strategy on one hand and tactics on the other hand. She seems to have a very well established strategy,
Mhm.
and yet the tactics of it are where she seems to fall short. That's what's very, very interesting.
Right. I think
And
so.
you have to kind of just wonder, what is it about the strategy slash tactics disconnect?
Huh.
How do you let that happen? It just doesn't seem to make sense. Just
No,
does not seem to make sense.
it doesn't. But I find it interesting that you brought up her vision board. Tell us, John, what's on your vision board?
Can't tell
Every
you.
interview, I have to get you to shake your head at me. That's the thing people look for now. So I just got that. Go ahead. Sorry. What's on your vision board, John?
Did Dr. Evil in the Austin Powers movies, did he ever share his vision board?
I cannot recall.
He didn't. I don't think he had a vision board. He just knew he knew what he wanted to
This is
be.
evil.
That's the way yes, exactly.
Can you do?
Exactly. So, yeah, yeah.
Fair enough.
I'll
Okay.
give you another interesting aspect of the whole strategy and tactics
Yeah, please.
conversation. I need to go back and count how many different categories of products Meghan anticipates registering under the As Ever trademark.
Mm-hmm.
When the way that the trademark office goes, and I'll just paraphrase this, when you apply for a trademark for something, for all intents and purposes, by the time you have exhausted the initial registration period, plus all of the potential extension registration periods, and when I say registration period, it's what they call the first use. That's a
Mm-hmm.
term of art in the trademark world, the first use. If you, let's say you have, and I think this is one of her items, like if you've said that you want to sell gardening gloves under the As Ever trademark,
Mm-hmm.
you have 3 years from the time the As Ever trademark is approved by the USPTO, United States Patent and Trademark Office. You effectively have 3 years
Mm-hmm.
to demonstrate a first use of those items in commerce, or else they will kick that item out and they will say, the trademark office will say, you said you wanted to use this, but you didn't get it done. So we're going to make it possible for somebody else to come along who wants to sell gardening gloves under the As Ever trademark.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it amazing, as slowly as she is working to release these products,
Mm-hmm.
there's no way in the world that she is going to be able to build up an As Ever enterprise
Right.
on this enormous catalog of SKUs.
Tranche of them. Yes.
Yes, yes, she will never get through, I don't think. Maybe she was just being preemptive. Maybe she was just covering her bases and saying, well, we might do this, and it's only whatever, however many $100 to register all these categories and so forth.
Mhm.
Fine, I get it. But at the same time, if she genuinely anticipates that she is going to release the, um, the if she's going to have an Amazon.com
Right.
uh, warehouse of all this stuff that
Mhm.
she's going to sell to the world, I mean, there's just no way. So again, that is her thinking very long term, but not having the tactics in place to make that strategy come to fruition.
Guys, I'm leaving part 1 here. It's been so much fun talking to John. I appreciate him taking the time to answer all of our questions, but you have got to come back for part 2 because we're going to jump into some weirdness with the kids and some Harry specific things and what else is going on with the two of them, our thoughts and opinions on all of that. So definitely check back tomorrow for that. Again, thank you, John Witherspoon, for being here. Make sure you go to his Instagram and give him the follow. I can't wait for him to start up his channel, and hopefully he'll take some of our name suggestions, right? Anyway, guys, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Do you make sure you're subscribed, that you hit the thumbs up and leave me comments, as all of those helps YouTube to recommend my video. I sincerely appreciate it. And I can't wait to bring you part 2 of my sit down with John Witherspoon. Take care, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.